Welcome to the Vault XL. Thank you for joining me. I have a lot of stats to bring you pertaining to transgender persons being murdered here in the United States, abroad, Chicago, Texas. We're going to start with a few stats. Thank you for joining me. If you'd like to donate to this great network, $ the Ganji. 129 Cash App. Stickers and chats are welcome during the live stream. JAMA Network is the source. Do transgender and gender diverse (TGD) individuals have increased overall and cause-specific morality compared with cisgender people? In this cohort study of 139,484 individuals, TGD people have elevated overall mortality compared with cisgender people, specifically deaths from external causes, suicides, homicides, accidental poisonings, endocrine disorders, and other ill-defined and unspecified causes. Trans feminine individuals had a decreased cancer mortality risk compared with cisgender women, but the same risk as cisgender men, whereas trans masculine individuals had the same cancer mortality risk as cisgender people. Meaning these findings highlight the need to develop interventions to prevent suicide, homicide, accidental poisonings to reduce mortality for TGD individuals. This is just bringing you stats all around. Limited prior research suggests that transgender and gender diverse people may have higher mortality rates than cisgender people. The objective, to estimate overall cause-specific mortality among TGD persons compared with cisgender persons. It's a lot to digest here. Let's see. This population-based cohort study used data from general practices in England, contributing to the UK's clinical practice. Research data link Gold and ARM databases, trans feminine assigned male at birth and trans masculine individuals were identified using diagnosis codes for gender incongruences between 1988 and 2019, matched to cisgender men and women according to birth year, practice registration date, and linked to the Office of National Statistics. Death registration data analysis was performed from February to June 22. I believe this is basically overseas stats. It's a lot to read. I'm going to bypass this one because it's so much. I'm going to just give you the network, JAMA network, for the stats, because I don't believe this is American stats. Forgive me for that, because I have so much to read and I don't want to bore you all with too much. Thank you all so much for joining me. There's been an uptick of transgender deaths, murders in Chicago and Texas, also other cities. I'm going to try to highlight all those cities in a short amount of time because too many stats can bore you, but just give you a synopsis of what is going on here in the United States. I was looking for an article pertaining to a transgender person who was murdered recently in Chicago. I couldn't find one video in the YouTube queue pertaining to this transgender person, so I'm going to read you the information via an article. Thank you for joining me. Because as I said, I don't want to read too many numbers because I don't want to bore you to death with said information. Let's start with Lisa Love, and we'll get that one out of the way. Thank you for joining me. This is by PGH Lesbian Correspondence. Lisa Love was a 35-year-old Black trans woman living in Chicago. This week, she became the most recent victim of anti-trans violence. This was uploaded October 20th of this month. According to police, around 4:30 a.m. Tuesday, the 35-year-old was shot in the chest and back near 79th and Cottage Grove. Loved ones said Turman was walking home after leaving a friend's house. A car just drove up, made a U-turn, saw my cousin, Donna said. Approximately 30 seconds later, the car stopped and my cousin was shot, honoring Lisa. And no suspects have been identified. Lisa was born in Chicago, moved to Rockford, Illinois in her 20s, returned to Chicago. She attended Kenwood Academy High School. She was a fan of actor Amaya Scott and musician Contradiction, the kid along with television shows. Lisa also liked several news stations and was a fan of movies. Lisa's family are grieving her senseless death, struggling to understand how simply walking home can lead to such tragedy. The intensity of the shooting is also horrifying. An all-around good person who did not deserve this, said Donna, cousin of Turman, during a phone interview with WGN News. A loving, caring, free-spirited person, always smiling and laughing. We recognize Lisa as the 33rd transgender non-conforming person whose violent death has been reported in 2023. 33rd as reported. She is the 25th trans person of color and the 17th Black trans person. Lisa is the 15th Black trans woman. A trans person has been killed in the U.S. every 8.7 days in 2023. Reported is an important distinction to make, as we know there are more folks whose deaths remain unacknowledged. Indeed, we have included 2 unidentified people whose remains were discovered this year on our list. Earlier this same week, we reported on the murder of another Black trans person in Chicago. In total, 3 trans folks have been killed in Chicago in 2023. 3 people. My list includes one additional person whose post will be shared later today. Rest in power, Lisa. Everyone should be free to simply walk home. It is a true tragedy that your life was taken so violently. You deserve to live a long life, enjoy the fruits of your hard work, and feel safe. The shame is on us for failing to create a safe world for you. Thank you all that you brought to us. This is our list. This is a transgender, non-binary, and gender non-conforming neighbors who have been victims of the campaign of terror in 2023. It said, please do not copy, modify, or share this list without attribution. So this is a list from this pghlesbian.com site. Jasmine Starr Mack, District of Columbia, January 7th, age 36. Casey Johnson, Wilmington, North Carolina, January 13th. Age 27, Tortuguita, Woolani Forest, Georgia, January 18th, age 26. Unique Banks, Chicago, January 23rd, age 21. Zaki Imanawitaho, Louisville, Kentucky, February 3rd, age 26. Maria Jose Rivera, Houston, Texas, January 21st, age 22. Cache Henderson, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, February 27th, age 31. Tasia Saya Woodland, Mechanicsville, Maryland, March 24th, age 18. Ashley Burton, Atlanta, Georgia, April 11th, age 37. Rashida Williams, Atlanta, Georgia, April 18th, age 35. Banco Brown, San Francisco, California, April 27th, age 24. Ashia Davis, Detroit, Michigan, June 2nd, age 34. Chanel Perez Ortiz, Carolina, Puerto Rico, June 25th, age 29. Jacob Williamson, Pageland, South Carolina, July 4th, age 18. Camden Ryder, Winter Haven, Florida, July 21st, age 21. Kylie Manali, Riverside, California, September 7th, reported September 23. Don't have an age. Devani Jeray Johnson, Los Angeles, California, August 7th, age 27. Thomas Tom Robinson, Calumet, Indiana, August 17th, age 28. Sharm Wilson, Cleveland, Ohio, September 8th, age 32. Breasia Banks, Arizona, September 5th, age 27. Alexa Sokova, Palm Bay, Florida, September 5th, age 30. Yoko, New Orleans, Louisiana, September 19th, age 30. Cody Lawrence, Weirton, West Virginia, September 5th, age 25. Unidentified person, Dallas, Texas, July of this year, age unknown. Unidentified person, Eugene, Oregon, August 10th, age unknown. Luis Angel Diaz Castro, San Juan, Puerto Rico, August 12th, age 22. Thaddeus Tad Keegan Bradley, Mendocino, California, September 21st, And then reported April 27th, no age. Cheryl Marjorie, Albuquerque, New Mexico, September 17th, age 35. China Long, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, October 8th, age 20. Skylar Harrison, Washington, D.C., October 2nd, age 30. Anee Johnson, Washington, D.C., October 14th, age 30. Dominic Palace Dupree, Chicago, Illinois, age 25. And Lisa Love of Chicago, October 19th, age 35. Thank you for joining me. That's a lot of people. Once again, the stats thus far. Know that anything can change and be added to these statistics. 33rd transgender non-conforming person has been reported in 2023. Lisa Love was the 25th trans person of color reported murdered in the United States and the 17th Black trans person. But she's listed as the 15th trans person. A trans person has been killed in the U.S. every 8.7 days in 2023. Reported is an important distinction to make, as we know there are more folks whose deaths remain unacknowledged. Indeed, we have included 2 unidentified people discovered this year on the list. So far, 3 trans were reported in Chicago 2023 as this report was rendered to the public this month. Thank you for joining me. Let's get down to what's going on in Chicago. Lisa Love is the latest person murdered in Chicago, 79th and Cottage Grove. For many of you who follow this content know that I am from Chicago. I am familiar with some places in Chicago, and the South Side is where she was murdered, where the Queen grew up, 20-something blocks from 79th. In Cottage Grove is where she was found deceased. Who murdered Lisa Love? What was she doing at this friend's house? How long was she there? Was there anything nefarious going on at this location? What did she do for a living? Did she work, have children? Where did she live? Did she live alone? Was there disagreement at this home where she was? Was she followed? Was she being stalked? Or was she just an innocent person walking by, fit the description of this person's hate, and they decided to act out revenge, or, as many would say, a hate crime pertaining to Miss Love? What happened? Chicago has had an uprising in transgender persons being murdered, and we're going to talk about that during this discussion. And we're also going to travel abroad and also to Texas, because Texas had high stats a few years ago of mortality rates of transgender persons. Allegedly, Chicago is or has surpassed Texas. I'm not really sure, because as they said, it depends on the report and who's putting in the report to say this person is a transgendered person and brutally killed. Thank you for joining me. One moment, please. Thank you all so much for joining me in the chat. I'm bringing you content from a year ago. I always check the queue in Google to see the latest installments of news and storylines to bring you the best accurate information pertaining to the subject matter at hand. And so far, this is all I have from a year ago, plus the article I just read you that was dated October 2023. Fox 32 is the source. This is from 1 year ago pertaining to the uptick of transgender persons being murdered in Chicago, Illinois. Thank you for your time.
The way in which people, trans and non-binary people, have been killed seems to be even more gruesome.
It's crime you may not always hear about, and it's happening at what some say is an epidemic level.
Anthony Ponce explains in tonight's special report.
Story is on fatal attacks against transgender people, the whole category of crimes that often goes unreported because advocates say standard crime data oftentimes doesn't tell the whole story behind the identity of the victim. So based on the data they do have, they say these murders are a problem that is getting worse and worse.
The brutal death of 33-year-old Tatiana LaBelle made headlines here just last month. The transgender woman's body was found in a garbage can in a Southside alley. Tiara Banks, Desai Monet, and Brianna Hamilton were also part of Chicago's transgender community. They were all killed last year.
Some of the trends that we've noticed is that the numbers continue to get higher and higher every year.
The Human Rights Campaign began tracking the number of transgender and gender non-conforming individuals who were the victims of fatal violence in the U.S. nearly 10 years ago.
We've unfortunately broken two grim records 2 years in a row, last year and the year before. And the truth is we may be on track to do that yet again this year.
Their numbers show at least 37 such deaths occurred in 2020 and at least 47 in 2021. That is a 27% increase.
I'm 72 years old, and across my lifetime, maybe 50. You know, this was the closest one. This was somebody that, you know, played with my grandchildren.
It has been 6 weeks since Alexis Martinez lost her friend, Elise Mallory. Both used to work together at the Chicago Therapy Collective in Andersonville. That is where there is a mural nearby remembering the transgender woman from Evanston and her advocacy work. So far, her cause of death is still undetermined.
I don't know how to express just the fear or the levels of actual terror that you go through being trans. This isn't something that you do because, oh, you chose, it's kind of trendy or something. This is heartfelt.
Alexis says a transgender person often becomes a victim of violent crime because they are forced to live on the streets at a young age.
They can only survive by participating in the street economy, you know, selling drugs, selling their bodies, you know, shoplifting, whatever it is that they can do to survive.
Here's another unfortunate trend, that most of the people that we report on were killed by someone that they knew. That's incredibly frightening.
Since 2013, 36% of the anti-trans violent deaths the Human Rights Campaign has recorded were committed by an acquaintance of the victim. Another 21% by the victim's intimate partner.
If we can't trust people that we know, then who is it that we can trust?
These statistics also indicate trans women of color seem to be at a greater risk of becoming a victim of violent crime.
As Black people, we're disproportionately impacted by fatal violence, number one. As trans people and gender minorities, as non-binary people, we're also more victimized because we're seen as less than and disposable.
Cooper says social determinants like where a person lives or works also play a part.
And the advocates we spoke with say the public would have a better idea of the number of violent deaths in the transgender community if the victim's identity was required to be recorded as how they lived their life and not just what is listed on the driver's license.
32 Fox 32 Chicago is the source. So as this person is speaking here, yes, the mortality rate amongst African American people higher in urban demographics. That is already known. Now you counter in more African American transgender persons being murdered. 36% of the perpetrators are known to the victims versus the 21% random people. So why is there a higher uptick of Black transgendered persons being murdered, either random or known? I also question the lifestyle. Is this percentage more of transgender persons that are living in the street or living a certain type of life, as this transgender person was saying, street economy? I've never heard that word used, but that's a very crafty word to use for living the life, the street life, street economy. You got to get your money by means of the street way. So are more of these persons being murdered because they're living a street life, or it's a mix? Because naturally, each death, murder, it's not the same. The circumstances are not the same. So are the transgender persons who, let's say, are living a more middle class, upper middle class lifestyle, financial, where they stay, decent area, are they prone to have a longer longevity of life versus a transgendered person, white or brown or black, living in a working class urban demographic? But that's the thing. You can't say either way, because if we want to say it's a matter of discretion, I don't want people to know I'm messing with this man dressed as a woman, and or I don't like these type of people, then you can be a target no matter where you're living. Middle class, upper class. You have a few famous people who are transgendered. You have not heard, horrific stories of them being murdered or gunned down or beat up. So one could say, what is the issue? Is it a hate crime? Some may say it's a hate crime, some may not. You're entitled to your opinion. But if you are targeting a person to accost him or her because she is identifying with the opposite sex in clothing, dress, then I would say, yes, it is a hate crime. Thank you for joining me. Let's hear more commentary pertaining to this uprising in Chicago. Once again, this content is by Fox 32 Chicago, and it was uploaded to the queue 1 year ago. Very disturbing information. Disturbing indeed. I'm also going to take you down to the Delta. We're going to go all the way to Mississippi with commentary from just a few years ago. Show you how bad things have gotten here in the United States. Prayers for our neighbors in Florida. Deadly shooting down there, 16 injured, about 18 or so injured, 2 dead from Halloween festivities that took place down there. And prayers for Matthew Perry's family. He was found deceased in his jacuzzi. A lot of crazy nonsense. And also prayers for Melissa Mooney. She was a model, African-American model, found deceased in her refrigerator, tied up, disposed of. It is a homicide. E-News is the source. That was from 2 days ago. "11 months ago, ABC 7 is the source. Chicago's trans community faces epidemic violence." Thank you for joining me. Rainy day here in the high 10. Rainy and cool. Hello, Lolo. Hello, everybody. Hello, Miss Walsh. Thank you all so much for joining me.
The American Medical Association branded it an epidemic of violence. The killings of transgender women, particularly those of color, continue at a concerning rate. What's fueling the increase? And the I-Team tonight with new accusations of discrimination by Chicago authorities. January 17, 2021, the body of Sherry Nicholas is found in her room at the Jackson Park Supportive Living Facility on Chicago's South Side. Jerry Nicholas claiming Chicago police did not take his transgender daughter's death seriously from the beginning because of who she was.
This is a apparent natural cause?
Well, We don't know.
Nicholas telling the I-Team authorities misgendered her, and he says there is evidence of foul play that was ignored. In an email to Nicholas, CPD declaring a thorough investigation found no evidence of murder and the case closed. The autopsy finding, cause of death, is undetermined. But a mysterious note allegedly written to the Nicholas family urging news involvement fuels this father's speculation.
She's gonna be missed forever. Ain't round back.
The note says, call the news people. So we'd have to ask ourselves, why would someone put that note in this person's personal area? Where was the note found? On his door, in a mailbox, in the decedent's mailbox, in the on the person's door, under the door? Does this place have cameras? Is this a sober living facility? Is it a place that houses trans homeless people or homeless people in general, people in transition from, let's see, incarceration? What type of facility is it? Because it said she was found dead in her room. That would lead me to believe this is some type of facility. What is the goal of this facility? How long was she living there? Were there security cameras on the floor of her unit? And why was her death determined undetermined by the coroner? Why? What did you find? What did the father see in the autopsy report that was deemed suspicious to him? Thank you for joining me.
Forever. Ain't round back.
An I-Team analysis of the latest numbers from 2020 to right now tracks 8 trans homicides in Chicago, with even more cases suspected of going unreported. All victims are women of color.
We're seeing geographic concentration in certain states and certain cities. Chicago being one of the cities in our database with the most transgender homicides.
In 2022, the Chicago area reeling from 3 deaths. Martasia Richmond is found stabbed to death on a porch in July. Daniel Burley, described as her partner, is charged with murder. Lawyers say he acted in self-defense. In March, Tatiana LaBelle's remains are discovered stuffed in the trash on the city's east side. No arrest yet. And a day later in Evanston, transgender activist Elise Mallory's body is discovered in Lake Michigan. Her death now listed as drowning, but the medical examiner's office is unable to rule if it was accidental or murder.
The clearance rates in our data are far below the national average for non-transgender homicide rates, and the clearance rates in Chicago are much lower.
Florida State University is compiling a database to keep tally on cases and the outcomes.
Definitely shows that there's a pattern of neglect.
National and local activists calling for police to stop misgendering victims and to take the crimes more seriously, including classifying the homicides as transgender.
That is definitely something that is important so communities know where the disparities lie.
For more than a week, Chicago police officials told the I-Team they wanted to do an interview for this report, but never provided anyone to speak on camera. Transgender activists are more forthcoming.
Most, if not all the time, trans people are murdered by someone that they care for or someone that they're doing survival sex work with. And we don't normally talk about that. 4 of the 8 Chicago cases have resulted in charges, including the murder of Courtney Ashay Key, shot to death here on Chicago's South Side in 2020. 62-year-old William Truss accused of killing Key after allegedly soliciting her for sex. Truss will be pleading not guilty, according to his attorney, who says he's innocent.
She left her footprint on your soul, on your heart.
Key's support network telling the I-Team the arrest is progress, but that more is needed.
This is a kickstart point for everybody, for real. This is like I said, it's a victory. So we won up right now.
Jerry Nicholas with his own small victory. The Civilian Office of Police Accountability, COPA, tonight referring Nicholas's complaint to the newly launched mediation pilot program.
They can correct us and show the LGBT community that they care about them also. That's what I want.
A spokesperson for the Supportive Living facility telling the I-Team they fully cooperated with CPD's investigation. Community activists telling the I-Team that trans and non-conforming deaths could decrease if there was more social acceptance and economic opportunities.
Hey, if you like that video,
ABC7 is the source. So why didn't the police give a statement pertaining to the death of this transgender person. The father, they're trying to get a statement from the police, and no statement. Why not? Why no statement, no advocate from the city to speak on the death, the findings of transgender persons being murdered in the city? As I said, each person is murdered for various reasons. I don't know if you can label each one a hate crime without knowing the circumstances. But the one with the 62-year-old man murdering the young person found in the street, that's strange to me. Why would a 62-year-old man be killing a younger person? This was a sex-oriented, I guess, transaction. So what happened? He didn't want to pay. Transgender person flipped out, wigged out. Hey, where's my money? What happened? 62 years of age. Imagine that. Soliciting a person for sex. Did he know that the person was actually a male dressed as a female? Because there are areas in cities where transgender persons work as sex workers. And many people will say, well, they know if they're driving by that area, they know that those are men, not women. So where was she at? Soliciting. Did he know that this was a man? Is that the reason for the death? That he assumed it was a woman and then later found out it was a man, and one thing begat another. He pled not guilty. Very interesting. One transgender person dumped in a garbage can. That's brutal. In an alley. There were balloons there in the area where the decedent was found. Just dumped like trash. Now, one could compare the situation to say, well, women are murdered every day by men, strangers, and acquaintances, and date partners, husbands, estranged husbands, boyfriends. So why would it be any different? These transgender people are going to actually be in relationships with somebody, a male, maybe a male that's not openly gay, or openly gay, openly bisexual, and it's no different. They pop off just like anybody else. As I've said before to someone earlier, I do find it interesting, men dressing as women, trying to live as a woman, because I have to ask myself, how are you carrying yourself in the public to get yourself murdered? And we know that you can be murdered just because you're breathing. You can be murdered in your home. You can be murdered at work, coming from your work, catching a bus, getting off a bus or train. But are some of these deaths linked to the lifestyle, perhaps not disclosing the sexuality at first and meeting a person or soliciting for sex, and then the person, the male, finds out it's a guy, and then they go ballistic? Or, as you hear, some situations are a dating situation. Or could it be the guy's dating him dressed as a her, but other people don't really know? I don't know. See, each situation is different. You're entitled to your opinion. Let's go over to Texas, because they've had an uptick of said crime, transgender persons as well. This was 3 years ago. Texas leads U.S. in murders of trans women of color. ABC 13 Houston is the source. Thank you for joining me. So who's in the lead? Texas, Chicago. I don't know. Either way, it's bad.
Conversation, but a much needed one, and we're starting it tonight. According to a list kept by the LGBTQ advocacy group, the Human Rights Campaign, in the past 5 years, more transgender people have been killed right here in Texas than in any other state. These pictures you see here behind me represent a violent and tragic trend happening all across our country and right here at home in Houston. These are the faces of trans women of color who were all murdered in cold blood. And tonight, we're taking an in-depth look as to what's fueling this violence and why local trans women tell me they're afraid now more than ever before.
My son came out to me Thanksgiving Day, 2017. Mama, I like boys.
Joyce Williams says she then watched her son trading
transitioned into Tracy.
When it comes time to dress as Tracy, I had to give him tips and pointers.
And Tracy blossomed, becoming a confident, outgoing fashionista.
Tracy was a highly energetic, life of the party type of energy type of person.
But on July 30th of this year, at 3 in the morning, police found the 22-year-old's body here at this gas station off the Katy Freeway. Investigators say Tracy's boyfriend, 25-year-old Joshua Bourgeois, stabbed her multiple times.
I ain't never been the same since that day. God honest.
Tracy now added to a growing list of trans women of color murdered. Natalie Marlowe, the latest here in Houston. Police say she was shot several times and killed in September by this man, Raymond Williams, who's still on the run. It's a growing epidemic across the country. In 2018, the Human Rights Campaign tracked 26 trans killings, the most ever recorded in a year. This year, 22 trans people have been killed. The majority of those victims, trans women of color.
What's your response to that? What do you feel? What do you think?
I'm angry because most of these murders are happening to people under age 30.
That's why Monica Roberts, a local transgender rights advocate, says the recent murders are a grim reminder of the work that still needs to be done.
So you transitioned 25 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Do you still have problems here on the street?
From time to time, every now and then I'll run into somebody that's speaking, and that I have to check.
Roberts believes the numbers of Black trans women murdered is actually much higher due to misgendering. The Human Rights Campaign says 77% of trans people here in Texas do not have any identification that reflects their preferred name or pronouns. Roberts runs Transgrio, a website that tracks the violence against transgender people. She says Tracy's body sat in the morgue for 10 days before HPD finally reached out to the LGBT community for help identifying her.
We didn't know right away.
Roberts says in some of the cases, the women were killed by someone they were in an intimate relationship with. In other cases, she says some men who love trans women will do just about anything to protect their reputation, even murder.
They are highly.
Let me stop there. I did notice in the names I read to you earlier during this live stream that most of the women were, yes, under the age of, I'd say 35 on the list that I read. I think the oldest was 35, maybe 37. This is compilations from 3 years ago in Texas, but this person speaks of the age 30. And as for love, you can't say you love somebody, but then you would murder him or her, whether it's same sex, opposite sex. Now, we've heard of crime of passion, something jumped off, popped off. The person went ballistic in a conversation, heated arguments, but in the end, you have control over your actions. And killing somebody because you don't want the secret out, I won't say that's a crime of passion. That's you not wanting people to know that you like men, that you are frequenting men, having sex with men, either for sex, soliciting them on the street, or in a relationship, hookup, however you want to word it. It's not love.
To protect their reputation, even murder.
They are highly misunderstood. They're not freaks, they're not perverts, they're people with red blood running through their veins.
That's where Kathy Griffin comes in. She's the director of human trafficking for Precinct 1.
The epidemic is real. Hate is real.
She took us on a ride-along late one Saturday night, showing us the dangerous life many of these women live after being abandoned by their families and ostracized.
Several in the transgender community do not want to be prostitutes.
This is Nikki, a transgender woman and a former prostitute who's been clean and off the streets for a year.
But one night, what can a girl make out here?
And one night you can make around 2,000.
I took Nikki back to her old stomping grounds. She was paranoid, shaking, and afraid her old pimps would recognize her and come after her.
Put a gun in my hand. They jumped me before. They robbed me. They almost raped me.
Nikki told me she's lost several friends out here.
It breaks my heart because I can be one of them.
These horrific stories of violence against Black trans women are becoming all too familiar. Now, Tracy's mom is hoping by telling her daughter's story, no other trans woman of color will have the same tragic fate.
If we're concerned about these transgenders dying by the numbers, the police have to be as well.
And according to the Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation, known as GLAAD, in the U.S., trans women of color have a life expectancy of just 35 years. I reached out to HPD to see what took so long for them to reach out to the LGBTQ community to help identify Tracy's body, and I haven't gotten a response. Lastly, I want to point out, Houston also has many trans women who don't turn to the streets for work. I spoke with a doctor, a lawyer, and an engineer, but none of them wanted to go on camera fearing the backlash they might receive. I'm Chauncey Glover, ABC 13, Eyewitness News.
ABC 13 Houston, very interesting information, informative information. This content was uploaded 3 years ago in the queue. So as you hear, some of these women, these men who identify as women, depends on your interpretation, have regular jobs, income, and they do not work the streets, but live as a female. And as you hear, they did not want to be identified for this piece. Naturally, they wouldn't draw attention to themselves, have to worry about where they live, not having a job, putting their business out publicly to everyone. Naturally, people in the job may know that, okay, that's a guy dressed up as a female, but we don't talk about it. We don't say anything about it. The age, once again, very young women being murdered by men, either hate crime, crime of passion as they're labeling it. But what I found interesting in this piece, this was uploaded 3 years ago, same thing. Police not responding to the LGBT community or organizations to get information out on identities of persons being found murdered or stats on their murder. Why not? Same issue with I just brought you the content from Chicago. And that was uploaded about, what, a year ago. No conversation with the police department. Why not? Houston has a lot of crime, period, in the urban neighborhoods. Let's get that straight, as we've heard earlier from a person speaking. A lot of crime in urban neighborhoods pertaining to African-American people. So you factor in, you live in the hood, an urban neighborhood, you have a chance of dying just because you live there. You don't have to be doing anything nefarious, involved in any type of illegal activity, drugs, using, selling, prostitution, theft. You're just in the area of crime, people who are committing crime. Are more of these women in the street life as far as prostitution, or it's a combination? I believe it's a combination. I don't think all these transgender persons are being murdered because they were soliciting men for sex. Because naturally you need a receipt to say, okay, it was in the middle of a transaction that this person got murdered. But nonetheless, it's still bad that it's an African-American person. To add to the growing numbers of people leaving here every day because of crime here in America. And then I'm going to bring you the content of the one transgender person who was beaten publicly over a car incident. A bunch of men jumped this transgender person, and this person already had been beaten up before. So now I have to ask that question. Why did you get beat up the first time? What was said for you to get beat up this second time during this altercation of a fender bender? Did you lash out, get mad, go off on the person? Hey, you hit my car, blah, blah, blah. He looked at you and said, oh, this is a guy dressed as a woman. Oh, hell no. Not going to front me, talk crazy to me. Boom, boom, boom. One thing leads to another. It's altercation. They got all these people beating this person. They filmed it. We're in this era, too, of everybody wants to film crime, which is violent in itself. You filming someone get beat up. Why? You're watching a man beat up another man dressed up as a woman. It's brutal. And then what are the odds? Beat up twice, beat up publicly, go before the public to tell the world you were beat up, to then be found murdered. That's my next content. Brief intermission. One moment, please. Thank you so much. ABC News is the source.
The stars of the groundbreaking TV show Pose, here to help us bring attention to the fact that this year alone, at least 18 transgender women of color have been murdered. It's not just murders. Countless more of my trans brothers and sisters have survived brutal attacks. It's a subject deeply personal to me as someone fighting for transgender visibility, with many in my community wondering, am I next? Tonight,
My name is Malaysia, and you can call me Lay.
the story of Malaysia Booker, an out and proud trans woman, brutally beaten, then murdered. Say her name! Malaysia Booker!
My reaction honestly was, am I next?
Now taking a stand on the streets, on TV,
How lucky are we create ourselves?
and on the political stage.
Declaring what God to him? Malaysia Booker?
If you're still paying for your groceries with your own money, what are you doing? So I just got...
Sorry about that. Brief intermission.
Malaysia Booker?
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. We're back now with actress Dominique Jackson, here to highlight the often overlooked state of hate and violence against the transgender community, especially trans women of color. It's so important because the transgender community is oftentimes marginalized in America. Our stories unheard, dismissed, and discarded. Tonight, emotional and frightening stories from the victims.
Hey. Close your eyes. Open your eyes. Smile. When you see Malaysia, you instantly see the biggest smile.
Malaysia Booker's personality sparkles.
He's very infectious.
My name is Malaysia, and you can call me Lay.
Hey, best friend.
Out and proud. At 22, a beacon for other trans women in Dallas who admired her, like her self-appointed auntie, Jasmine.
I have been trans all these years, but I mostly lived in my house. She made me want to get out and live and just be visible.
But that visibility made Malaysia a target. In April, a minor fender bender escalating into a horrifying assault. A warning, it's difficult to watch. Bystanders capturing it all on video, quickly going viral. Malaysia later told police her attackers hurled transphobic slurs at her. This man was arrested for the beating. His lawyer tells us he intends to plead not guilty.
I get the chills coming here. The whole apartment complex was outside and nobody helped her.
After several excruciating minutes, a few women finally dragged Malaysia to safety, unconscious, with a concussion and a broken wrist.
This happens on a daily. Another one of my friends got killed right up the street from here. It breaks my heart, but it's reality. As a Black trans woman, it makes me feel scared. I feel alone. I feel ashamed. I feel hopeless.
Malaysia was feeling that hopelessness too. After the beating, it was Auntie Jasmine who Malaysia asked for.
So I just started praying over her. She pulled me by my shirt and she tells me, Amy, I told you they hate us. Our own people hate us. They want us dead. I'm actually feeling very nervous right now.
A transgender woman punched and kicked in the street by a group of men, and the brutal attack is all on video.
It wasn't the first time she'd been attacked, but this time, Malaysia chose to speak out.
This time it was me, the next time it could be someone else.
But before she faced those cameras, Jessica Anderson, her best friend from long before she transitioned, helped her get ready.
When I got done with her makeup, this was the first time I ever seen my best friend look at herself and just be like, I look really, really pretty. I look like a girl. And she was really, really, really beautiful.
I can stand before you, whereas in other scenarios, we are at a memorial. Our time to seek justice is now. If not now, when?
A brave, beautiful moment, but Malaysia would never see justice. Just weeks after that rallying cry, in the quiet and early morning, Malaysia was found dead.
Detectives found Booker face down early Saturday morning.
They say Malaysia Booker was shot and killed.
At 3 p.m., the victim was positively identified as Malaysia Booker.
She was left here on the side of a road.
I just really can't imagine somebody doing it to her.
Dallas police arrested this man for her murder. His trial pending. His alleged motive still unclear.
Malaysia was somebody's daughter. Malaysia.
And let me say for the record, this mugshot of this male, why does he favor Henry Dinkins? The male, the monster that murdered Breasia Terrell years ago. This is very spooky. And the fact that there is no motive, why not? What has he said? How does he know her? How did he meet this person? Did they date, have sex? Was it a sexual transaction? Stalking, what happened? Why no motive? And what has he said about the death of this person? This is very interesting information. And once again, he favors Henry Dinkins. Very crazy. They say everyone has a twin. Well, indeed, Henry Dinkins has a twin, who's also a killer.
Walker was human. She wanted to live like everybody else.
Malaysia is one of at least 18 trans women of color who've been killed this year alone. The real number likely higher. The data shows the trans identity of nearly 3/4 of victims is initially left out from police and media reports.
Trans rights are human rights! Trans rights are human rights!
The American Medical Association calling the violence an epidemic.
Malaysia Booker, say her name! Malaysia Booker!
Over several months, we traveled the country, hearing similar stories of anti-trans violence.
What was your reaction to hear not one, but 2 trans women of color gunned down in a matter of months on the same street?
I was shocked. My reaction honestly was in my neck.
But ask yourself, if it was any other community being targeted, would there be more outrage?
I feel like Cooper endangered species, and I'm aware of that. But I cannot stop living.
Let's ask that question. Why are some of these reports not documented to the news media? Why no advocacy from the police department and their advocacy program? Because they have domestic violence advocates for women being beat up, brutalized. You even have cases of men being brutalized by women, which many will scoff at that because they feel like a man should be able to protect himself from violence from a woman. But nonetheless, domestic violence advocates in police departments around the United States. Why no advocacy for transgender persons? Why no accuracy in the deaths of these people when they're found deceased? No matter the manner of death, people still want to know. Some people anyway. Very interesting. Why no transparency? Two people murdered on the same street. You can't make that up. Why? Was this an area where there was solicitation for sex? I do not know.
I gotta stop living.
The struggles of women like Jasmine have been largely ignored. The media spotlight has mostly been on white trans women like Caitlyn Jenner, Jazz Jennings, and Kim Petras.
Would it be more people rallying for the lives if they were white women? Would people care more, take an interest in the subject matter if it was white women, deemed women, white men dressed up as a woman? Would the white transgender persons get more attention?
That's now changing thanks to boundary-pushing shows like Pose. Now stories about the non-white trans struggle are becoming more visible.
11 girls have been killed this year.
She would have wanted us to honor her memory
Leading the charge for awareness, trans celebrities of color themselves, like Laverne Cox. Both Dominique Jackson and India Moore have been open about their past struggles.
I've already seen the worst of what my life could be, so it's very easy for me to stand up for myself and others without thinking too much about the risks that come with that.
The risks are something that these trans youth face daily. They come here to Casa Ruby, a safe haven in the nation's capital.
When you're in this life, it's survival of the fittest.
Many who seek shelter here say they've been kicked out of their homes for being trans.
When you've been rejected by everyone that you supposedly love, you come here to find love and support.
And have you ever been verbally abused, physically abused out in the world?
I mean, once. I mean, I got raped like 5 times, but that's something.
Bianca, that is not normal.
That's something.
But you just dismissively say, I was raped 5 times.
Yeah, because I don't want to give any emotion to it, because if you don't give anything to it, then it won't grow. And I'm not trying to give no emotion to that, because it happened so long ago.
I've been followed home. I've been stalked. I have had guys try to sexually harass me in just disrespectful ways.
We wake up in a world that is not designed to support transgender people, to welcome us in school, to give us a chance to get an education. Employers are not eager to hire us.
Casa Ruby is named after this woman, Ruby Corrado, an early activist for trans rights.
My job is to restore their dignity. My number one role here is to restore everything that has been taken away from them.
But when pushed to the margins, some trans women of color turn to what they call survival sex work.
It makes us vulnerable. When we're doing it, we're looking for the next dollar. You can't really block off this person just because we feel it's scared. Girls have been stabbed and thrown out of cars.
If you don't find that nurturing that you need to survive, more than likely you will die then. Most of us die before we're 30.
Most die before the age of 30. You've heard that mentioned earlier during this live stream. Under the age of 35, the stats I brought you of transgender persons who were brutally murdered under the age of 35. Now you hear this person speaking, an advocate, some won't make it to 30. This content was uploaded 4 years ago. ABC News is the source. Thank you for joining me.
Zoe Spears never made it to 30. She was 23 when she was killed this past June.
This is our memorial to Zoe and Ashanti. They are the last 2 girls who lost their lives this year.
Ruby takes pictures of all the girls like Zoe who call this place home for a very poignant reason.
I want to have the closest reminder because I know that there is a possibility that they will not come back.
That's just comforting. Here on the outskirts of DC, on a street known for survival sex work, is where Zoe took her last breath.
She was shot on her back. Can't run away from guns and hate when they live in your community.
Ruby has lost more than 30 of her girls in the past 7 years, but the hurt stings just as much every time.
I couldn't be here. I've been in her life for a long time. I've been her protector. I couldn't save her. I couldn't keep her from my stomach.
At the end of the day, what killed Zoe Spears?
Society killed Zoe. She had a lot of dreams, and every door that she knocked, very often they will say no.
Keep recording. When we come back,
They're threatening me and my friend. We don't say it.
How the girls died out.
I'm gonna crack the crap!
And it's like this.
And at the end of this content by ABC News, It was a transgendered person on a live stream, I guess, filming being accosted by someone, or plural, and that person ended up on a stretcher with a bloody face, beat up. Can a person exacerbate the situation to become a victim? Please check out my content pertaining to Gwen out of California. This boy child is no longer alive. He identified as Gwen. The video is in the YouTube queue. It's on my community page. A young boy out of California who was dressing up as a female, befriended some boys in the neighborhood, going to their house. One thing begat another. He ended up having sexual relations with two of the guys. And on one fateful evening, they wanted him to show them that he was a girl, allegedly. But naturally, he could not do that because he was a male. Different accounts of what happened. Naturally, everybody's going to always have a version. One female who was actually there, an actual female, recounts what happened. Boy child going in the bathroom when one of the other guys comes out 35 minutes later, 30 to 45 minutes later, which I find very strange. Then that guy proceeds to beat her up. She goes outside, comes back in, hangs around in the house, then it ends up unconscious on a sofa. Do not know if this account is the truth, because who's going to tell the truth? They realize, the ringleader, hey, we've got to kill him, take him out to the garage, choke him to death with a rope, and take him out hours away and bury him. One of the walkie-talkies told it to another friend, and that is how the truth came out. Hung jury, first trial, second trial, they all were found guilty. Each did different years in penitentiary. Most of the boys have been released. They're now men. But the ringleader, he's still in prison. Wonder why? Because in court, he decided to be himself. The prosecutor lied. The witnesses lied. My co-defendants lied. They have not told the truth about what actually happened. It doesn't matter because your friend told it. And if one guy, Jose, who they believe was the one that actually had feelings for Gwen, he apologized, said he was sorry to the family for killing Gwen, then why would we believe a sane person that you didn't kill Gwen deliberately? It was a hate crime, because I believe you all knew all along that it was a boy, and at some point you found out it was a boy, and you had relations with a boy. You couldn't accept the fact that you had sexual relations with a boy, and that came out by the guy who was the walkie-talkie. All this touching and fondling and sex, but no sex and no seeing of the private parts. Why? So some would say, well, how could you have relationships with a girl and not know if she had a vagina or not? So I found that suspicious. Two of you having sex with Gwen, but you never realized it was a boy. You never saw her vagina. She never showed it to you. You never tried to touch down there. Come on now. You looked at her and you never thought she's very masculine looking. Because when you look at the photographs of Gwen, she appeared masculine. And it's not to say that females don't have masculine features as far as build, their body, where their body is built, broad shoulders, muscular arms, legs, so on and so forth, tall. But having sexual relations, at some point, you should be saying to yourself, something is not right. So I believe they set Gwen up, called her over to the house or invited her over. She foolishly went over there, and one thing begat another. And they killed her and then buried her. And then one of them told it. And the sad part is that an actual female was there when all this went down, and she never had the fortitude to try to stop it, intervene, call police, whatever. So to me, you're just as guilty because you were there and you never notified law enforcement that Gwen was murdered. All parties are guilty in my eyes. But the part that bothers me is that Gwen was over there knowing it was nothing but guys in the beginning. And one of the guys, who's the walkie-talkie, who got the story out, repeating it, said she was flirting with everybody, flirting with this one. So naturally, we're boys, we went along with the flow. And that's my point. Can you exacerbate your death by putting yourself in a situation that is not safe? You want to be liked. You want people to like you. You want boys to like you. But you are a boy, a man. and you're not being truthful of who you are. And you can still get yourself hurt or murdered by telling the truth because you don't know people. And that was Gwen's downfall. Hanging with these boys, flirting with them. I do believe she possibly flirted. I don't think he lied about that. Going from one boy to the other, which is a very, very bad idea. It's bad if you are a female to do it. Because you're putting yourself in harm's way. You could be gang raped, whether you're a man or a boy, transgender or not. That is not a good idea to go into a place with people you really don't know and assume they would not do anything nefarious to you. You cannot have that attitude. Young boys do it, grown men will do it. And I would recommend that to any woman out here. Whether you are transgender or not, do not go into someone's home where there are other males there. And naturally, you don't know who's going to be there till you get there. You can be surprised, of course. But if someone is telling you on the phone, yeah, I got some guys over here. Yeah, I got my homeboys over here. Yeah, we're watching a game, whatever. Just say, I'll pass. I'll talk to you another time. I'll visit you another time when you are alone. That's why you need to get to know people, get a feel of who you're talking to, who you're dealing with. Because I do not recommend any woman going into a home or a car with men. I don't recommend it because anything can jump off. You can be hurt by one man. Now imagine 2, 3, 4. Don't do it. Let's take this story and go on down to the Delta, Mississippi. Thank you for joining me. As I always say, be aware of your surroundings. I'll give you my opinion and my commentary after I play all the audio and read you the other information pertaining to this subject matter. Channel 4 News is the source. It's uploaded 5 years ago. Misha Caldwell is my last commentary. Thank you for joining me. I will put up a poll pertaining to this subject matter after this live stream or during.
One of the biggest issues when it comes to transgender people is that,
well, buffering right now. Oh, we're having a little rain up here in the high 10s, so. Slow rolling.
that society does not understand or is not willing to understand. A lot of people, they still deem it to be a choice, but who in their right mind would choose to be targeted?
For many in the LGBT community, drag is a way of celebrating identity. Vivacious, powerful, witty, fearless. And that honesty is all the more important here in Mississippi, one of the most conservative and religious states in America, where coming out can take courage, especially for the transgender community. A community that last year was touched by tragedy in what would become one of the deadliest years on record for transgender people in the United States.
It was here in January 2017 that Misha Caldwell, 41, an African-American transgender woman, was found murdered by the side of the road. And more than a year on, no one has been charged for Misha's murder. So who killed her? Why was she killed? And why is it so dangerous to be a transgender person in America today?
Misha was a popular woman in the community, known for being a talented hairdresser. Her friends describe her as a local legend. She'd been an outgoing, confident woman. who gave many of them inspiration and hope. One of her closest friends, Noelle, left the state 2 years ago. She says she was worn down by the stares and the lack of opportunities. She's now back in Mississippi to reminisce with her old friend, Malaysia. As they try to understand what exactly happened to Misha.
Look good. She was herself, she was open, she was honest, she was transparent. It was just something about Misha that all of us drew to. It was just the realness.
The same sweet girl every time I saw her. No matter what situation was going on in the club, no matter what happened in the clubs, whatever. I mean, you know, we made a partnership with one another.
She sounds like a happy, confident person.
Absolutely, absolutely. She never steered from who she was. She was like an inspiration for me.
A role model.
Yeah, a role model.
Misha was very strong. Misha was very smart. Misha would fight. She could definitely take care of herself. So when this happened to my sister, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't accept it.
Do you remember where you were when you heard about Misha having gone missing and then her body being found?
I was in my kitchen cooking dinner, and my son, he said, "Well, girl, they got Misha." Oh my God! You know, just in disbelief about the whole situation. That had to have been the hardest thing for me to hear. Because I want to say a week to 2 weeks prior, she was just sitting on my couch.
The coroner said Misha had been shot 3 times in the neck, chest, and arm. Her murder is still being investigated by the local sheriff's office and the FBI. Neither will comment on an ongoing investigation. Her death was the first recorded murder of a transgender person in 2017. The Human Rights Campaign recorded at least 28 killings that year, the worst on record. While Misha's case remains unsolved, LGBT activists here in the South say the reason why it has become so dangerous is due to recent legislation.
We will prosecute to the fullest anybody who targets the transgender community with that.
In 2016, Mississippi introduced a bill allowing organizations and individuals to refuse to marry, serve, or employ an LGBT person based on their religious beliefs.
I think a lot of people have felt emboldened by the kind of anti-LGBTQ legislation that we have experienced.
So you see a direct line from legislation to violence?
Absolutely. I do believe that not just the legislation, but I do believe that the kind of rhetoric and the coarse conversation, the coarse talk that we've heard from the person who was a candidate and who became our president has definitely fueled the fire here in Mississippi.
Fill me up, send me out. Fill me up, send me out.
If you like stimulus. All right, brief intermission. The question of the hour is, do you accept men dressing as women, living as women? Do you accept the behavior? Do you think it's right, morally right, ethically right to dress as a female, and you are not a female, you are not born a female, live as a female, perpetrate yourself as a female, either vocally or non-vocally? This is why I believe a lot of transgendered persons are accosted, some of them, like I say all, but some, because each situation is different, because they have not disclosed that they are a man. Now, we know there are men on the down low. We can touch on that subject a little later in the week, who like men dressed as women, which makes no sense to me. As I said to my family member today, what is the purpose in dating a man dressed as a woman, but you know that it's a man? So that means what? Obviously, you're gay. Then why not just get not a straight gay man, but a man who looks like a man, but he is identifying as a homosexual? Why do you want one dressed up as a woman? So as my family member said, well, this is a guy who is obviously bisexual. He still likes a woman and a man. This is the most weird topic phenomena. You're out scouring the streets, the internet for a man dressed as a woman. Why? Why not just get a whole man that is gay, openly gay? You let him know that you're gay, bisexual, whatever, and keep it moving. Why are you as a man wanting a man dressed up in a woman in women's clothing? I'll never understand it, and nobody can ever make me understand it. Now, some will say it's illusion, fantasy. What kind of fantasy is that? You want to be with a man and a damn woman. Well, then go get you a man. That's the point I'm trying to make. You a man, you like gay men, then go get you a gay man. It makes no sense to walk around with a man dressed as a woman. Then you're telling the world that you still are physically attracted to a woman. Then just say, I like men and women. So basically, to me, that's what you're telling the world. I like men and women. But if you're solely dating only men dressed as women, then to me, something is wrong with you. Because that makes no sense to me. To be walking around with a whole man dressed as a woman, but only prefer a man dressed as a woman. You're still saying you're attracted to a woman because they're made up. Make it make sense. Let's finish this commentary. Thank you for joining me. Channel 4 News is the source. Misha Caldwell is the subject, Mississippi.
The church here in Mississippi is hugely influential.
Jesus' name, yes. Amen.
And it was the Baptist church that gave the recent bill its blessing.
For those within the LGBT community, they say that this is discrimination and that they feel second-class citizens because of this bill and that they feel fearful of recriminations.
We'd be adamantly opposed to any violence against any human being, period. No question. It's wrong, wrong, wrong. Has been, will be, always will be. But that does not suggest that we would think that we should compromise on this issue for ourselves. The bill in no way empowers prejudice. The bill in no way empowers hate. The bill simply says that if you have deeply held religious convictions, you have the right to say no.
Saturday night in Jackson, Mississippi, and on the outskirts of the city, we're at one of only 2 LGBT bars in the area.
In Mississippi, I would say it is pretty tough because this is like the biggest gay bash in Christianity state ever.
Kachara is a young transgender woman currently transitioning. And she explains the struggle of dating and forming relationships in a state where many feel it is now the law to discriminate.
I didn't want to hide anymore. Like, I want to be treated like a woman. I want to be treated like basically a human being. Like, take me on a date, take me out in public. Don't be embarrassed to go out with me. I think I look pretty feminine. So
let's ask that question while he is speaking. Yeah, I said he. I want to be treated like a woman. I feel like I'm pretty, but that's the point. You're not a woman. You are not a woman. I do not believe in violence against anyone unless you are defending your life. Adamantly defending your life. But because you don't like somebody, because you have a difference of opinion, because they said or did something you did not like, depending on what that could be, of course, you have no right to bludgeon a person to death, beat a person to death, stab a person to death, shoot a person to death. Or beat a person because they've outed you as being a homosexual or bisexual. As I said, each of these situations are different pertaining to murder. I'm not there to say why this man would kill another man dressed as a woman. I can't say. But you hear this male speaking saying, I want to be treated as a woman. But that's the point. You can't be treated as a woman because you're not. You mean you want to be treated as a human being. You feel like you identify with being a woman. But then one could say, How is that? When you're not a woman, you're not a female, you're not biologically born as a female. You can feel feminine because it's a flip of the coin. You can't tell me how I feel. I feel like I'm a guy. I feel like I'm a female. So everything's based on a feeling, but not what you actually are. You're entitled to your opinion of the information. But to say, treat me like a woman, one can say, why should I? When you're not a woman. I could treat you accordingly. See, that's a difference. Now, this is just my personal opinion. As I've already stated, I do not condone men dressing as women. I don't. I don't care if you like men. That's not the subject to me. The subject is you putting on female clothes, makeup, nails, all the things that are identifiable as a female, the female gender, and then saying, I am a girl, I am a female. And then as this male is saying, treat me as she. No, I don't have to. And this is why we differ in opinion and why people become violent, because this is what the kind of world we're in. People become violent over a person's opinion and their commentary. I, for one, don't have to become violent to give my opinion, to say I don't condone this behavior, and I don't have to call you anything, and I will not identify you as a she. I said it during the Gwen commentary on that article I commented, called him a she, trying not to be disrespectful, but I do not, out here walking amongst a man dressed as a woman, I do not have to call you a she or her. That's my prerogative, because I don't have to identify you as anything. Let me make that clear. And people, transgender persons, cannot get angry because you are not being identified as a him or her. This is why people get very angry with this pronoun business, because it's like you're basically trying to tell me how I should see you. And if I know that you're biologically a man or biologically a woman, why are you telling me I should identify you as the opposite sex? I'm supposed to see you as that. You want to get mad at your parents because they won't call you a her, but they brought you in the world as a him. So all of a sudden they're supposed to just say, oh, that's my daughter. I'm just saying. And you'll learn that with the Gwen story. The mother had to, try to grow into calling her son a girl. Now that child is no longer alive because she was murdered as a teenager by some friends she was hanging with. But the point being, some people just can't grasp a hold of calling you the opposite sex. And you can't get mad at that. Because if they know you as a boy, then that's what they know you as. And that's where we have this conflict here in America, is the arguing over pronouns when, one, I don't even know you. I'm just saying. Let's finish this commentary.
Don't be embarrassed to go out with me. I think I look pretty feminine. So
pretty feminine.
I had this one guy. He told me that he would kill me if I was to ever tell anybody about our relationship or what we had going on.
And let's chop that up for a second. I would kill you if you tell anybody what we got going on. Maybe this is the reason why a lot of the men who are actually on the down low are homosexual, bisexual men. It's easier for them to go out and try to pick a guy who's dressed like a girl. That way they can try to hide behind people knowing that they like men. Bingo card. Is that what's going on, this new phenomenon? I don't want people knowing that I like men. I can't accept myself that I like men. So I'm going to go find me a guy dressed as a girl, man, and hide behind that, sneak around, go underground, go on the down low, have sexual relations with him, her, until I'm caught and found out. Is that what's going on here now in the United States and abroad? Is that the reason for the guys walking around hiding that they're gay, bisexual? Is that they don't want anybody to know, so they go try to find a guy dressed up like a female? But the whole community already knows that's a guy in that skirt and dress and makeup and nails. So you ain't fooling nobody. You ain't fooling nobody, because people talk. When you live in a small area, such as where I live, they talk a lot. And I don't mean to be rude, but I call a spade a spade. Many transgendered persons who are flamboyant in their demeanor, gay men who are flamboyant, they talk a lot. And they will tell that you've had sex with them. Some will lie because they can't get that guy. And then some will tell the truth. Oh, yeah, I've been with him. Oh, yeah, he's bisexual. Oh, yeah, he gay. Oh, yeah, he's on the down low. Can't wait to tell it. This is why a lot of these men end up beat up and dead because they talk too much. And some of you may not like my commentary, but I'm telling you what I see and what I hear and what I've witnessed. And of course, some of these men do not want to be outed. So hell yeah, as this guy just said here, female, whomever, yeah, the guy said, I'll kill you if you tell. Hell yeah, they'll kill you because they still want that image of being a whole man, a straight man, but he is not. And then he's doing a disservice to women because he's lying about his sexuality and then also sleeping with her, sleeping with other women, maybe married in a relationship. God forbid, don't use a condom. And then you're sitting here penetrating our man. So this is why a lot of people have problems with homosexual men, bisexual men, men on the down low, men dating men dressed up as women, living as women, however you want to word it, because they're perpetrating and they're straddling the fence, as they say in the street. You either in or out. Ain't no halfway in. You on the fence or you off. When you talk about dealing with a person's livelihood, their health, you need to tell them who you are. I'm a man that likes men. I have sex with men on occasion. I swing. I like menage a trois. Whatever you into, if you want to be in a relationship or like somebody, you might want to disclose all that said information as to not have any misunderstandings later down the road. And all this busybody business about I'm grown, I can do what I want. We already know that. But when emotions get involved, that's a different category. And as they say, so long as you're doing sex, somebody's going to get some emotions. Whether you have them or not, the other party may get emotions.
Relationship or what we had going on because he didn't want to be out. He has a reputation. That's not something
that's my point.
He wants on his name.
Misha's death fits a disturbing pattern. The majority of the 28 transgender people murdered last year were women of color in the South. Their friends believe they were killed by men they know, men who lash out through prejudice at a community that feels it has no laws to protect them.
We belong in Mississippi. I mean, this is my home. I've been here almost 40 years. You know, so for me to pack up and leave someplace that I call home because y'all too ignorant to understand, or y'all too ignorant to want to gain knowledge and understanding about a community, all I can continue to do is what I'm doing is pressing the issue and pushing the issue and allowing you the opportunity to open up that door of inclusion.
Well, since we filmed Malaysia, the last person speaking there to Kieran Moodley in his report, she's decided to leave Mississippi. She tells us she hopes to find a safer, more affirming environment for her and for her work in transgender education and advocacy.
That's Mississippi, everybody down in the Delta, one of the most conservative states in the union, still behind in far as growth and economy, employment, bad health care for many citizens, African-American people, high HIV rates were documented down in Mississippi many years ago, a slow-moving state. But then when you go back hundreds of years, I'm sure Mississippi was high in the hierarchy of moving and growth hundreds of years ago when we had slavery. Isn't it amazing how things change? Still prejudice in the South, there, still brutality against African-American people, hangings, lynchings, known in Mississippi. Nothing has changed. More people live in Mississippi now. A lot of people have migrated from up north to Mississippi, northern Mississippi, Tennessee, other southern states. cheaper to live, slower life. But as you see, still racism, still hate. And it's bad enough that we are hated as Black people. Now we have this epidemic of gender hate. So as I asked the question, do you approve, condone men dressing as women, living as women? How do you feel about transgender people? I'm sitting here listening to this person speak, the last person speaking, who allegedly has left Mississippi. This content is a few years old. And I asked myself, just how did it come to be men dressing as women? I jogged my memory back to being a child in Chicago and seeing a person who would walk up and down the street in the evenings, obviously coming from work, passing my stoop to get to their building. And he was dressed as a woman, and I knew it was a man because I heard my mother and neighbors saying it was a man dressed up. And at that time, they had all type of different names for, I guess, homosexuals, bull dagger, whatever. And I just thought it was strange, this man dressed up as a woman. Because that's the point. I was taught that a woman dressed as a woman, dresses, skirts, makeup, not a guy, not a man. And he walked by every day, going his merry way, home. Probably had just left work, just got off the bus or train, passed our block to get home, but he was dressed as a woman, lived obviously as a woman. Now, this is in the 70s. Now, fast forward, it's 2023. And it is now prevalent to live as whomever you want to live and do whatever you want to do modern day. One moment, please. We're in an era now where you can do what you want, say what you want. And I think that's our problem now here in the United States, abroad. We're too free to talk, to be. And as many people will say, oh, well, it's our right, it's our freedom to do what we want, act as we want, act out, lash out, show out, violent, all of that, it's okay. But then we say, well, it's wrong to hit a woman, hit a child, beat an animal, beat a person that's identifying with the opposite sex. But I always say it's okay when you do it for your own reasons, whatever. Lash out. We're too free. Too free with everything. Because as I said, how did it come to be a man started dressing as a woman? Vice versa, a woman dressing as a man. How in the world did it come to be acceptable in some demographics for a man to walk around in women's clothing and pretending to be a woman and asking people and telling people, you call me she, you call me this. As I said, you don't have the right to tell anyone to call you anything. And you can argue this till you're blue in the face, but you do not have the right to tell me as a human being what I should call you. Because I came to the earth as a female. I identify as a female. My birth certificate and my body parts identify me as a female. I have a free will to think for myself. So therefore, you cannot tell me how I should think and what I should say and how I should identify you. You want to call yourself a she and you a he, that is your prerogative. But you don't have the right to tell others they are supposed to call you a she and you are a male biologically. How do you feel that that's right? You're a woman, same thing. Why should I call you a him? And the fact that you all want to throw this in schoolhouses, buildings, work, church, whatever, it's not the place for that. This is what breeds hate. Is you trying to force something on somebody who really they don't have a dog in the race, probably could care less about how you're living. That's what a lot of people need to understand about transgender lifestyles. A lot of people really don't care. They're not walking around every day waking up saying, oh, I don't like that homosexual. I don't like this and that. They're not thinking about you. But when you say and throw it in somebody's face, hey, you better do this. You best call me. I want to be notified as this. That's where the problem comes in. Same thing with the bathroom issue. That was an issue years ago. Common sense, you just put restroom. You want to put an extra stall in there? I mean, another toilet, a urinal, and a toilet seat, then put 2 in there. So when a person goes in there, they shut the door, they lock the door. You use whichever one you want to use. It's your prerogative. Nobody's in there to see what you're doing. In many offices that are small, they only have one restroom. And then they'll say, bathroom, restroom. Have a man and a woman up there. Handicap emblem. Letting you know it's accessible by wheelchair, walker. That's all you need. But to tell somebody, hey, you better put a bathroom for me. The guy that dresses like a female, the female that dresses like a guy. No, you don't have a right to tell the business to do that. Because a lot of places are small, mom and pop shops. They just have a bathroom. Such as doctor's offices, they just have a restroom, some of them. They don't have a restroom for a man or a woman. It's just a restroom. So who are you to tell somebody, go build a bathroom for a transgender person? How is that right? That's not right. This is why we have the hate we have. It's the ordering people around and telling them, hey, you better think like this. Hey, you better include me. Hey, you better identify me as this. What you're supposed to be asking for is respect as a human, whether you're Black, Asian, Native American, whatever you want to identify yourself. Hey, respect me because I'm human. How I choose to live is my business, but respect me as a human. Not all this pronoun, binary, all this other type of nonsense. Just respects me because I'm human. All right. Let's get more information out here. We're going to go back to 2021. They noticed an uptick, I guess, of transgender crimes probably starting in 2015. But as they say, everything depends on the police department bringing records to the public, to the media, asked to get an accurate account of transgender persons being assaulted and or murdered. Forbes is the source. 375 transgender people murdered in 2021, deadliest year since records began. This was November 11th, 2021. 375 transgender people were killed this year in 2021, a figure that has risen since last year's total of 350. The report authors say this makes 2021 the deadliest year of violence against gender diverse people since records began. 1 in 4 of those murdered were killed in their own home. The annual global list is released for Transgender Day of Remembrance, TDOR, held on November 20th each year. The majority of the murders happen in Central and South America, 70%. Very interesting. But like last few years, the most deaths in a single country occurred in Brazil, totaling 33% of global deaths. Who knew that abroad had such a high rate of transgender persons being murdered? Cases from Greece, Kazakhstan, Malawi were reported for the first time too. The report notes that the numbers indicate a worrying trend when it comes to the intersections of misogyny, racism, xenophobia, and hate towards sex workers. It found that most victims were Black and migrant trans women of color and trans sex workers. 9 in 10, 96% of those murdered globally were trans women or trans feminine people. Over half, 58% of those murdered were sex workers, and 4 in 10 were European migrants at 43%. This is a few years ago. The report's release follows several years of human rights organizations worldwide recording yearly rises in violence against transgender people. So obviously more people abroad, Brazil, were transgendered sex workers. Very interesting. But a further humbling and critical part of these figures' context is that the death toll is likely only to be the tip of the iceberg. Many hate crimes and murders go unreported or crucially misreported in the media, as I made this point earlier, meaning the actual number of deaths could be far higher. These numbers are just a small glimpse of the reality on the ground, says the report authors. The majority of the data was collected from countries with an established network of trans and LGBTIQ organizations that conduct the monitoring. In those countries, data is not systematically collected. Most cases continue to go unreported, and when reported, receive very little attention. Why is that? Why is there such little attention abroad and stateside pertaining to transgender persons being murdered, assaulted? Why not tell this guy, girl was of opposite persuasion and hurt, harmed, or deceased? Homicide. The list is compiled by Trans Respect versus Transphobia Worldwide, a TGEU project by sourcing local and national news stories covering the deaths and murders. The violence, horror, and murders are cataloged by TVT, which has a complete list of all those killed this year. The global list is part of an annual report released to mark the International Trans Day of Remembrance, held annually on November 20th. So if you like to keep that in your database, November 20th is a recognition of those of the transgender status murdered. Since 2008, the Trans Murder Monitoring Report has been recording homicides that happen every year between October 1st and September 30th. Since the project began 13 years ago, they have recorded 4,039 deaths. The number of fatalities has risen from 2019's 331 and 2020's 350 to 375 in 2021. Wow, that's steep. Although we must view the data in the context of being the tip of the iceberg, the report authors note the alarming upwards trend throughout their data from 2008 to 2020. Behind the statistical representation of numbers and percentages, there are people whose lives we value and who we as societies fail to protect, the report author says. Meanwhile, a global recession in trans rights continues, with countries from Hungary, Poland, even the UK, seeing rising transphobia, anti-LGBTQ policies, and rhetoric. In the UK, transphobic hate crime reports have quadrupled over the last 6 years. Now, what is the Transgender Day of Remembrance? And this was pertaining to 21. And it's just basically saying it's a day that they remember trans and gender diverse people who have been the victims of homicide. And let's see. That's basically the information. Forbes is the source if you need verification. And this was uploaded November 11, 2021, 2 years ago. So 21 had a record high. And also they have high reports of transgendered persons being murdered abroad. Brazil, never knew that. Very interesting information. Let's see what varnet.org has to say pertaining to 2022's account of transgender persons being killed. They had the record at 32 in 2022, and that was content from November 16th, 2022. At least 32 transgender, gender non-conforming people have been killed in the United States in 2022, the Human Rights Campaign announced Wednesday in its annual report ahead of the Transgender Day of Remembrance. Transgender people of color account for 81% of known victims this year. 81% last year were of color, and 59%. No, excuse me. It said transgender people of color account for 81% of known victims this year, and 59% were Black. So most of the people that are transgender, I guess, were 81%. Those that were victims, 59% were Black, excuse me. Trans women are disproportionately represented, as they have been in years past, also comprising 81% of the deaths recorded at the time of publication. So I want to make sure I repeat that correctly. Transgender people of color account for 81% of known victims, and 59% were Black. if that makes any sense to you. And once again, trans women are disproportionately represented as they have been in years past, also comprising 81% of the deaths recorded at the time of publication. Human Rights Campaign has documented at least 302 violent deaths of transgendered and gender nonconforming people since the LGBTQ advocacy organization began tracking such fatalities in 2013. The same year, the FBI began tracking hate crimes against transgender people. The victims have been overwhelmingly Black, under 35, and killed with a firearm. You keep hearing that number, 35 and 30. That number has been mentioned at least 3 to 4 times during the commentary of this live stream. One lady said, we don't expect them to make it to 30. I brought you content earlier during this live pertaining to the age group of the people in the list of decedents, and they were under the age of about 36, 37 to 35. Very disturbing. Black transgender women such as Charmaine Giselle Marie, a 27-year-old nursing assistant killed in June in Gulfport, Mississippi, comprised 63% of all recorded victims since 2013. This week is Transgender Awareness Week and leads into Sunday's Transgender Day of Remembrance, an international observance honoring those killed by anti-transgender violence and drawing attention to the threats trans people face. This content was uploaded last year in November. That's a lot. Transgender people of color account for 81% of known victims last year, and 59% were Black. Very, very scary. This is very scary information. Oh, wow. Why is that? Does anybody have an answer? TransgenderLawCenter.org is my next source. According to our research, there have been 139 reported incidents of fatal transphobic violence in the U.S. since 2017. The U.S. ranks third in the world for trans people who are violently killed after Brazil and Mexico. And these are nationalities that would be known to have a disdain for homosexuality in general, because I've heard it mentioned in the Hispanic culture, Latin culture, that it is not approved of to be a homosexual. And also it is very highly disapproved of in the African culture and also third world countries such as Iranian, Arabic cultures. The pervasive narrative surrounding trans people is about how many of us have died each year. But anti-trans violence isn't just an interpersonal phenomenon. Trans people are trapped in a web of violence. Institutions like the government, agencies like ICE, the police, and individuals trap trans people into a life where we are vulnerable to be violently killed. Incidents of fatal anti-trans violence are not singular events. Rather, fatal transphobic violence is the result of multiple incidents over the course of a trans person's life. Every time we are refused health care, every time we are denied access to a homeless shelter, every time the police profile us as sex workers and incarcerate us. Trans people aren't killed because we've made the wrong choices in life. We're killed because institutions and powerful individuals make the choice to put us at risk. Roxana Hernandez died in the custody of Immigration and Customs enforced while living with HIV. Laylene Polanco died from a seizure while in solitary confinement at Rikers Island Jail. Both deaths were preventable. We chose to feature 4 regions that are among those with the highest rates of violence in our study to illustrate the roots of anti-trans violence: Louisiana, Texas, New York, and Puerto Rico. Our study details the demographics of those who have been violently killed. And we also dive deeper to explore the culture and legislation that put trans people at risk. To end anti-trans violence, we have to fix all the conditions that lead to the violence in the first place. Despite overwhelming violence, trans people are brilliant, creative people. We've had to build our own families, homes, health. Trans communities represent the possibility of a future of interdependence and mutual care among all people. You'll find resources for trans people included in each region's report. Louisiana. Between 2017 and 2020, advocates tracked 11 violent deaths of trans and non-binary people in Louisiana. Take a deeper look into some of the issues facing TGNB Louisianians, learn about community-led solutions to end violence, and see how you can help. New York. 2017 to 2020, advocates tracked 9 violent deaths of trans non-binary people. New York State. Take a deeper look into the issues facing TGNB New Yorkers. Once again, learn more about the solutions to end the violence. Puerto Rico. In 2020, the advocates tracked 6 violent deaths of trans non-binary people. Texas. 2017 to 2020, the advocates tracked 14 violent deaths of trans non-binary people in Texas. Indigenous communities. Trans people are not killed simply because of the actions of one individual perpetrator. We are trapped in a web of violence, legislation, and institutions like the criminalization of gender-affirming healthcare and the false narratives about trans youth. For indigenous communities, the legacy and ongoing violence of colonization adds a deeper layer to anti-trans violence. They didn't really give much on indigenous people having violence or assaults. Didn't say. But nonetheless, that is the set information. If you want the source of this information, Transgender Law Center is the source. Thank you so much for joining me. Bringing you an in-depth discussion pertaining to transgender violence here in the United States. The topic was pertaining to the uptick of violence in Chicago. I also took you to Texas and also down in the Delta to Mississippi and now abroad to foreign countries such as Brazil, Mexico, and the UK. Once again, 2021 had the deadliest account of transgendered people murdered, 375. Let's see what The Guardian has to say about the UK. Hello, everybody in the chat. Thank you for your time. Have a wonderful week. Happy Halloween to all of you. Please check my community board for said updates, polls, and Halloween suggestion. Scary movies. Countdown has begun. We're almost there. Please mind the children. Please check all candies, food items brought in after trick-or-treating. This was uploaded October 5th of this year. A record number of hate crimes were committed against transgender people last year in England and Wales, even as racist and homophobic hate crimes recorded by police fell for the first time on record. In the year ending March 2023, 4,732 hate crimes against transgender people were recorded. That's a lot, 4,000. A rise of 11% in the previous year. The Home Office report said that comments by politicians and the media over the last year may have led to an increase in these offenses. Rishi Sunak's keynote speech to the Conservative Conference seemed to argue that transgender identities were not valid. A man is a man and a woman is a woman. That's just common sense, he said. The number of racist hate crimes recorded by the police in England and Wales fell for the first time on record, driven by a decrease in racially aggravated public fear, alarm, or distress offenses. Racist and sexual orientation hate crimes fell back slightly in 22-23, but transgender and religiously motivated crimes rose. Hate crime recorded by police in England and Wales by a motivating factor. Okay, so to give you a chart of sexual orientation, race, disability, religion, transgender. Once again, uptick of 11%, 4,732 pertaining to transgender crimes. Figures released by the Home Office showed there were 101,906 racist hate crimes recorded in 22-23, down 6% from 21-22. However, the figure was still higher than the 90,909 recorded in 2021. Homophobic hate crimes also fell by 6% over the last year, 24,102, the first fall since March 2013, while disability hate crimes fell by 1%. However, religiously motivated hate crimes rose last year by 9%, with a record 9,387 documented in the year to March. Why would anybody be hurting disabled people? Come on now. You have to have a really demonic spirit that you would be assaulting or murdering a disabled human being. However, once again, hate crimes rose 9%, 9,387 documented up until March. 2 in 5 religious hate crimes were against people perceived to be Muslim, while 1 in 6 were against people perceived to be Jewish. Just 7% of all hate crimes were dealt with by a charge or court summons, down from 9% in the year ending March 22. Interesting. There was an increase in cases where victims did not support police action, as well as cases where no suspect was identified. Transgender and disability-based hate crimes were less likely to result in a charge or court summons than hate crimes based on a person's race, religion, or sexual orientation. Since 2011 and 12, the number of hate crimes recorded by police has more than tripled. However, police forces have made large improvements in how they record crime over the last decade, and have also improved their identification of what constitutes a hate crime, meaning the rising figures may not truly reflect a rise in actual hate crimes taking place over that period. The Home Office said the overall fall in the figures could be linked to interim guidance published last year, which may have led to greater scrutiny of the threshold of what constitutes a criminal offense of public fear, alarm, or distress. However, its report noted transgender issues have been heavily discussed by politicians, the media, and on social media over the last year, which may have led to an increase in these offenses or more awareness in the police and identification and recording of these crimes. The LGBTQ plus group Stonewall criticized political leaders for not having acted seriously or quickly enough against hate crime, adding that many of them are filling the public domain with toxic language that dehumanizes LGBTQ plus people. Lenny Morris, CEO of LGBTQ plus anti-abuse charity Gallup, said the figures did not reflect what the charity had seen in its services. She said, in the last year alone, we have seen a 65% increase in LGBTQ plus victims of hate crime coming to us for support. These figures have never captured the true picture of hate crime in this country. The government's own research shows that over 90% of anti-LGBT plus hate crimes go unreported. This is a case of poor data not reflecting reality. We believe this reflects a decrease in trust of police and the criminal justice system, and fewer victims coming forward to formally report what has happened to them. A Home Office spokesperson said, there is no place for hate in our society. It does not reflect the values of modern Britain, and we remain committed to ensuring these abhorrent offenses are stamped out, which is why we have a robust legislative framework to tackle it wherever it is found. These statistics show there has been an overall reduction in hate crimes recorded by police, and the numbers of sexual orientation, race, and disability hate crimes all fell. Whilst the increase in transgender hate crime may be due to a genuine rise, the biggest driver is likely to be general improvements in police recording. The Home Office said that any instance of hate crime was one too many, and that it expected the police to fully investigate all such incidents and make sure the cowards who commit them feel the full force of the law. I hope you appreciated this article, and basically the Guardian is asking for your support to their monthly feed of information. TheGuardian.com is the source, everybody. So what we have here is no different than what I've brought to you during this live stream pertaining to stateside information, police, and crime. It's a matter of who's going to report the crime, that it was committed to them, the accuracy of reporting the crime by law officials, and the data released to the public and the media. So there are lots of crimes naturally that go unreported, period. We have an uptick of crime in the United States, and obviously an uptick of crime abroad, Mexico, UK, Brazil, and other locales. We are in a violent society. Let's start there. It really doesn't matter if you are gay, bisexual, binary, whatever you want to call yourself. We live in a violent world. People get angry, as you hear in this commentary. Social media has helped ante up a lot of violence in our country and abroad. People getting mad at what a person has said on social media, the news, giving commentary, Twitter, X, whatever. And next thing you know, they're hunting people down and trying to find them. Some have been found and some have been assaulted and murdered. And as I have always said, you have to be very careful how you carry yourself, number one, in public. You have to be wary of how you carry yourself on social media. The things you do and say can lead to you being hurt, harmed, hacked, attacked, things done to your friends, your family, your pets, because of something you said or did, accusations of something you said or did. Social media has given more credence to people committing crimes, because people are putting their personal business out there for the public to see, to weigh in, to critique, to judge. And as I said, you need to be aware of how you carry yourself. And I believe that in general, no matter your social status, no matter your income, your race, your religious background, your sex, your orientation, what you say and do can cause you an issue down the road. And that's where we are right now in America and abroad. Social media. There will always be crime. There will always be hate. There will always be biasness. There will always be fraud, theft, manipulation, connery, buffoonery, murder. Because we live in an evil world. We live in a vengeful society. We live in a world where people are greedy, self-absorbed, narcissists, sociopaths, psychopaths. So it's not going to matter if you're in Iran, Gaza, America. We live with hateful people. We live with people who are not leaders. They are followers. We live with people who are tyrants. We live with people who are greedy. And so long as you have these vices, it can lead to murder. It's just the way it is. It's the way it's been since God created the earth, created man and created woman. Once the apple was eaten, that's that. Can't go back. No replay. People are tainted. People are coerced. People are misled, misinformed. And people are easily manipulated. And so long as you do not have free will to think for yourself, you are going to have a problem in this world. If you can be easily coerced to do something, act on something, commit a crime, fraud, you will be a statistic. That's just the way it is. You've got to learn how to think for yourself. You cannot go jump in the water knowing you cannot swim. You don't have a life preserver. Or hell, jumped in and there wasn't no damn water in there. So you went head first into concrete dirt. See where I'm going? You have to be aware of your surroundings and how you carry yourself. And it is so true. Social media has anteed up a lot of violence in this country just from a comment. Somebody made a comment. Somebody got offended. Now somebody is mad as hell. Now somebody wants revenge. This is why a lot of people are hurt, because they do not know when to shut up. They do not know how to stay off of social media. They do not know how to say, I might not need to say that. And you could be telling the truth. Your truth. Because in the end, truth is about perception. You can feel like what you're saying is the truth. What you're saying is right. But there will be somebody who will disagree with what you're saying, what you're doing. And now they want to harm you. My opinion stands during this live stream pertaining to transgendered persons. I do not agree with a man dressing up as a woman. I just have a problem with that. I think it will lead to a multitude of sins, a multitude of problems. That's just my personal opinion. Because as I said, we live in a world that's filled with crime, especially here stateside, major cities such as Chicago, New York, LA. So you living in a crime-ridden state, crime-ridden city, you're already at risk for harm coming your way just because you're breathing. Doesn't even matter. Arab, Jew, white, Asian, black, whatever, binary. You live in a crime-ridden city, there's a chance of you having a really bad accident, nasty accident. Now you factor in you're a man running around in women's clothing. God forbid you're flaming, you're talking, you're boisterous, you're loud, you're rude, you're nasty. See, all those factors count because, as I said, how you carry yourself will determine your blueprint on this earth. We can agree to disagree, but there will always be somebody that will, one, have a problem with you. Mouth open, mouth closed. We live in a sick society. So if you're out here doing things to exacerbate a situation that didn't have to exist, why do it? You're not living your truth as far as being a gay, bisexual person. You're probably going to have problems. You're soliciting yourself for sex, relationships, fake profiles. You're not telling people that underneath that skirt and dress is a guy, a whole penis. You're going to have a problem in life. Female, same thing. You're perpetrating as a guy, but you have a vagina. That's going to be a problem down the road. Hell yeah, somebody will beat the brakes off of you. They meet you, you're steady saying you're a girl, you're a guy, and then they get along with you and see something else downtown. Now you've got to decide how you're going to get out of this situation without being harmed. And there's nobody there but you and that person. Now you've got to plead for your life when you didn't have to put yourself in that situation. 2, you could go in the situation telling the truth. Hey, I'm a guy dressed up as a female, and then the guy could lead you to death. Misrepresent himself that he's interested in you. Hi, sure, let's meet up. Let's go to Old Charlie's, Ruby Tuesday, blah, blah, blah. Hey, let's go take a walk around the lake and pond and then beat you to death or stab you or shoot you. Because he really didn't like you. He really wasn't interested in you. He's a sadist. He's a killer. You don't know people. You take a chance every day. You go out your door. You take a chance waking up and sleeping in your own house. Going to work, play, church, it's all the same. You do not know people. You have people who are willingly out here seeking people on apps just to harm them, rob them, rape them. So this is why I say you have to be aware of your surroundings. You have to try to read people the best you can. But at some point, you're going to be alone with another civilian and all bets are off once you are alone with a certain person. And that's just the way it is. You don't know people. And our children are at risk. We trust people every day to watch our children, mentor our children, teach our children, and they're not safe in school by other students, staff members, parents, neighborhood, neighbors. Same thing with an adult. No one is safe out here because we live in a sick society and people are tainted and their spirits are bad. They have bad spirits. They have bad thoughts. They've been coerced. They've been groomed to be sadists. And that's just the world that we're in. And as I have said before about child molestation, I can also throw that into this topic as well. A lot of people will navigate towards deviants taught to them. Men will be bisexual from being touched, fondled, molested, raped as children, adolescents. Now, a guy who could have only favored women now fantasizes about being with men, being with boys because somebody introduced that to him. As Dr. Field loves to say, your childhood is the start of who you are, how you come to be. That maybe if this didn't happen to you as a child, you would turn out different. Of course, it's common sense. Most child molesters were molested as children. So now we have boys growing up messing with boys. Then they become men who fancy men or fancy boy children because of grooming, because of sexual assault. And that might be part of the reason why we have a lot of homosexual men is from grooming, child assault, or they just were born, and some will say I was born this way. That's their opinion. Or sampled the other side, well, the same side rather, liked it, or as I said, groomed, assaulted, and now they fancy being with the same sex, or like both. And we do have men who like both. We have women who like both. So you never know how people come to be who they are. But a lot of who we are as people starts from childhood. What we were taught, who raised us, what they showed us, our environment, how we were treated, what we watched on TV, what our parents and adults did around us, in front of us, subjected us to, all that forms your identity. So many people are out here as adults doing all types of different things sexually because of what they saw as children, being groomed, their environment, how they were raised, how they were talked to. And then some just went out on their own and sampled the pond on free will. That's my content for this afternoon. Transgender crimes, murder, uptick, United States and also abroad. And I never knew about the violence in Brazil. I had no idea, never heard anything about it until I read this content to you today. Very informative information. Each information has a source if you need verification. All the information I play for you by audio is on my community page and via the YouTube queue. I will put up a poll pertaining to transgendered subject matter this afternoon. Please take the poll. Feel free to comment below. Always feel free to comment during the chat. Like, share, subscribe. Share this content. Make it viral. I will continue this subject matter throughout the week as I gather more information pertaining to transgender crimes and assaults and murder. And as I said, please feel free to share this information and comment on the video. Give me time to upload this content and also post polls pertaining to the subject matter. Texas, Chicago, uptick of crime pertaining to transgender persons. Do you agree with men living as women, representing themselves as women, also being called she, her? Is it overrated, this pronoun business? What about it in the schoolhouse? We could touch on this subject as I have done before. Please check out my extensive library, 2,000 plus content, and this subject matter has been spoken of before in previous videos. Thank you all so much for joining me. If you'd like to donate to this network, $McAngie 129 Cash App. Stickers and chats are always welcome during the live stream. Thank you all so much for your time. God bless all of you. You're so very welcome, Miss Walsh. Thank you for commenting. I surely appreciate it. I will be back with more stimulating content. My next live stream, I'd like to talk about Mr. Avery. I'd like to bring you some content from a guy who was locked up with Mr. Avery. Did he commit the first crime where he was exonerated, sued the judicial system for having him incarcerated, later to go on to murder Miss Teresa Halbach? Did he murder her? Did they get it wrong? Is he just an angry man because he was in penitentiary for all those years? Once again, he was exonerated for the first crime of an assault of a female, but then he later gets out to be rearrested for the murder of Teresa Halbach. Did he kill Teresa? Or is he innocent? Is there police tampering? Production of evidence against him, false evidence. And what does this inmate, ex-inmate, have to say? Do you believe the commentary he has brought forward pertaining to this man being built into a killer? Wasn't a killer until he became incarcerated and he became bitter. More or less, he was a Build-A-Bear. Was Mr. Avery built to become a killer? That's my next subject matter. Thank you all so much for joining me. You have been listening to the Vault XL.